Good afternoon, all. Thanks for being here late in the conference or on the home stretch. A lot of good sessions going on right now at the same time. So I'm glad you came to this one, and hopefully we'll learn a bit, and hopefully we'll have a little fun along the way. There may be opportunity to ask for questions along the way. There definitely will be opportunities for questions and discussion at the end. So feel free, if you have questions, note them, don't lose them, and we'll make sure we get to them. All right. We're going to have this is the kind of the high level agenda. I'll share a few tips and a little bit of guidance about communicating with executives. Frankly, communicating with a lot of folks, very common guidance, but we're trying to focus on strengthening that relationship with the executive suite and senior executives in your organization. So that's really what we want to do, is impart some guidelines and tips and thoughts along those lines. I'm delighted to be here with colleagues and friends, Mr. Jeff Birdsong, Dr. Stephen Dukes. Mr. Birdsong will talk a little bit about an HTM journey as he's seen it, and give you a hospital administrator's perspective. And Dr. Dukes will talk a little bit about the clinician perspective and give you some viewpoints there, because while all senior executive roles, they vary, and how you might interact with different senior executives may vary a little bit. Plus, there's a lot of commonality, which I'm sure you'll recognize along the way. So, and then at the end, we'll have some again, some interaction with you all. And there'll be some scenarios and some thought provokers that we can have some open conversation about, and maybe get some thoughts and input from you guys on what might work well for you if we haven't covered those items. Okay, so I'll start. As far as me, I've had a number of assignments. I worked in the Department of Veterans Affairs in healthcare technology management, biomedical engineering, clinical engineering for many years. Left the VA a couple of years ago. It was a wonderful opportunity to serve veterans and to support the medical technologies that helped take care of the veterans. Are there any veterans in the room? Awesome, Frank. Thanks for your service. Yep. So I'm going to give some general guidance and tips. This may, very frankly, sound easy. These are the kinds of things that, often do sound like it, is straightforward and simple. Maybe one would say it is straightforward and simple, but when you're suddenly put in a room with, with a group of senior executives, it can be intimidating. It can be a little bit uncomfortable. Keep in mind, it doesn't have to be difficult. Let it be as simple as this might sound to you. Okay. Admittedly, I'm probably going to talk about, presenting, communicating with executive leaders, typically face-to-face or in a meeting in a room, but many of these same concepts go in written communications. If you're writing a brief, to provide to executive leaders, very similar concepts hold there. So understand the context. Is this a decision-making event or meeting? Is it informing? Who's going to be there? What's your role? Are you there to be a, kind of a listener, participant, or are you there to actually brief a particular topic? Make sure that you're aware and understanding your part in the meetings. What sort of time? If you are going to be briefing a topic, get your best sense for what sort of time you might have. You may be there's one topic for the meeting or two topics for the meeting, so you might have a good chunk of time. In general, I would suggest you plan to have less time than you probably would like to have, ideally. Plan for, if you think you would like to have 10 or 15 minutes, plan for 5 or 6 minutes. If it looks like on the agenda you might have 20 or 30 minutes, plan to, to get it through your content in half that time. Because time goes fast, and the executives want to cut to the chase. Okay. Speaking of cutting to the chase, be concise, be clear. Don't take a lot of time setting up the topic, setting up your recommendations, getting to the meat of the matter, okay? Dive right into it. Okay? You can always back up if certain parts need amplification for the folks in the audience that you're addressing, okay? Demystify the content. Don't use a lot of jargon. You don't have to explain all the ins and outs of what it's taking to get that CT scanner back online, right? Get to the bottom line. If leadership is looking for an update on the CT scanner that's down, give them the facts and get right to the bottom line. They don't need to know that it's a detector assembly that's bad and it's a one-off detector assembly and you've had to call 16 people to find it, et cetera, right? That's not what they need to know, okay? Often, and a lot of this, very frankly, is learned through personal experience. Fewer words can be surprisingly impactful, okay? Sometimes you talk too long, you talk too much, and it kind of dilutes your message. Think carefully, know in advance your message, and think how few words you can impart that message in. Okay? You're addressing a group of executives, and in this context, senior executives in your organization. They have a lot that they're looking after, right? Your focus is the healthcare technology, the medical equipment, and that's but one of their interests, right? They're looking at the whole organization, the whole hospital or healthcare system, and all that it makes it run, makes it operate. So think about that, okay? Think enterprise-wide view, enterprise, the organization-wide. Think about, they're always leaning forward, right? So think about what's coming around the corner. Think about, the future. You're briefing them not just for this moment or instant in time, but what might be coming up in the coming months to sometimes years. That's where their mind is. That's where they're thinking. Okay, of course, today is important, and depending on the circumstance, getting that CT scanner back online so that we can get patients through it. Yeah, that's today's matter. But they're probably going to be asking or expecting you to say, what might you learn from this so that it's less likely that the CT scanner goes down in the future? Okay, so think ahead a bit. Okay. Cultivate strategic relationships. You're going into a meeting, there are going to be other department chiefs or department representatives there. How would they do complement or work in concert with what you do? Think about that. Think about the relationships you have with those leaders. Think about what you could do before the meetings or on an ongoing basis to strengthen your relationships with other leaders in the organization so that it's not the first time you've actually talked to them or worked through an issue or a difficult issue with them when you're in front of the executive suite. Okay, develop those relationships very intentionally. Think about the organization's business goals. You, of course, have your goals. You're keeping that technology, that equipment operational and optimized, and perhaps bringing new innovative technology into the organization. How does that line up with nursing's objectives? How does that line up with materials management's objectives? How does that line up with finances, goals, and objectives? Okay. And don't be afraid to compliment the good work of others, including the executives. I'd caution you, don't compliment for the sake of complimenting. Make sure it's true, right? You're not doing this to schmooze them or to brown nose them. You're doing it if they approved some resource for you and that's made a difference. It's okay to let them know that. Thank you for approving the overtime. Last month, we were able to drain the swamp and catch up on backlogged work. It's okay to share the success and the reasons for that success with your leaders or the other counterparts of yours in the room if they're contributing to the topic at hand. Bring solutions, not just problems. Very often, we're bringing an issue to the executive suite. They want an update on some challenging issue of the moment. They probably already know what the problem is. There's some challenge that we're faced with. Bring some solutions, or at least a recommendation to them. The recommendation or the proposed solutions don't have to be perfect, but at least it shows you've put some thought, effort, formulated some ideas that you think maybe could work, or at least be the seeds of a way forward. You need some additional guidance from the C-suite or some colleagues in the organization to fully bake out the recommendation, but at least you're showing your best effort to not just drop a problem on their feet. What is a way forward? What's a path forward? Okay. Remain calm under pressure. As mentioned earlier, it can be an overwhelming experience sometimes if you're in a room with folks that are many layers perhaps in the organization above you. Keep in mind they're people too, right? They're they put their pants on the same way you do. Don't let it be overly intimidating, but at the same time you're going to be respecting their position, right, where they are in the organization. Pace yourself. Don't talk too fast. That's often a temptation, is to your material so well that you're rambling right through it, and it just goes too fast for them. So pace yourself. Sometimes, especially if it's a room of multiple executives, not everybody's on the same page, right? There may be some healthy discussion, some debate about the way forward that may or may not, be the way you want it to go or you think it best to go. Don't let your emotion get the best of you. Stick with the facts. Do speak truth. If the way they're leaning towards, it's been tried before, and you'd be very surprised if it's going to work. They want to hear from you that this has been tried 6 times before, and it's not worked successfully in any of those times. Let them know that, right? Not argumentative, but letting them know that truth of the matter. And to the extent you have data to strengthen your case or to support your position, absolutely leverage data, right? Everybody these days likes data when it's available. So don't be afraid to bring that data. Come armed with with supporting evidence to your position, to your recommendation forward. Last but not least from me, be confident that you're there for a reason. You're being asked to brief for a reason. Typically, you're the expert in the room. Now they're smart people in the room. Those executives are no dummies. Again, you don't want to start shooting the BS, because they'll see through that. I can tell you that the 2 folks on the panel here are engineers. Even though they're not acting as engineers in their day job, they've both got engineering degrees. So if I started to shoot the BS to them, they're going to see right through that. If I start talking technical, and you may not even know that what their background contains, the executives you're meeting with. So be careful about what you start throwing around, but know that you're an expert. Be confident in yourself as the expert in the room. This is why you're there. Okay. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Birdsong next. And again, keep questions in your mind, or make a notes, and we'll cover all questions at the end. Jeff, the right one advances it.
All right. So I subtitled this "The Journey." And I have to say, this group looks like it's ready for that booze and brews that I saw on the other side. So I completely understand. I figured I would start off with a little interesting fact about myself, and I'll try to get used to the little clicker here. My bachelor's is in aerospace engineering. You may wonder to yourself, how in the world does somebody with an aerospace engineering degree become a healthcare engineer? And it really makes a lot of sense if you think about it. You have hospital design, you have airplane design, same concept. You're cramming 10 pounds of crap in a 5-pound can. Okay, so that's my one joke. Hopefully I've livened up the crowd. If you guys don't act up a little bit, I'm gonna have to do a whole health exercise with you here. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I started my career, I've been a healthcare engineer for 30 years. I started my career at the Big Spring VA Medical Center in Big Spring, Texas, as the assistant chief. Over about 3.5 years, I became the chief engineer there, so I was there for about 5 years. Decided to take the big plunge and went into the private sector, HCA facility on the East Coast, Longwood Regional. It's in Fort Pierce, Florida. Essentially doing the same thing, but obviously different environment and different responsibilities. So I was there for about 8.5 years. Really kind of missed the VA. I love the mission, and opportunity presented itself. So in January 2008, decided to come to Orlando as the facilities manager, again, doing the same thing. So I've been doing that since 2008, but I've had some senior executive level opportunities along the way. I've been an associate director. I've been an activations executive. I've been an assistant director a couple of times. The first at Bay Pines VA Healthcare System, and then the most recent here in Orlando. And that's in fact what I've been doing over the past year. I basically come into work, whatever they want me to do. If they want me to wash dishes, whatever, I'll do it. But that's a little bit about me and kind of my journey getting here. Now, why am I up here? As you can tell from my bio, I've worn a lot of hats, and I've also had a lot of experiences. And I think there's 3 things in particular that add value to this discussion. The first is, over the 30 years that I've been doing this, I've had HTM under my purview most of that time. The second is, I've been in both the government and private sector, so I've seen how it operates on both sides. And while the scope and the responsibilities are similar, when it comes to implementation and focus, it is different. And probably the third and most important thing for this group is I've been on both sides of the fence. I've been the face for HTM, dealing with some really hard questions from leadership. And I've also been in a leadership role where I'm asking those hard questions. So it definitely gives me a unique perspective. I didn't realize these things were going to transition so slowly. Obviously, I didn't check that on the presentation format. So, and I'm going to click through these to get them all up here. So how did HTM get here? If you noticed on the title slide, it said the journey. And that's really about this slide right here. And why I think it's important to talk about this, there has been a huge change in clinical engineering, at least from my perspective, over the last 2 decades. And I really think it's important for you to understand where you've come from to where you are now, so that you understand the expectations, because they have evolved. There have been 4 paradigm shifts as I see it. The first, a transition from device focus to systems focus. This has all been technology driven. Implementation of microprocessors, implementation of software-based systems, implementation of networking, implementation of our connectivity to electronic health record, and now AI. There's been this exponential increase in clinical capabilities over the years. And that's actually led to the second bullet in the second paradigm shift, which is a transition from biomed to healthcare technology management, which is a much greater scope. The third is a realignment. And again, understand this is probably more from a VA perspective, although I do believe it translates into the private sector, at least portions of this in some form or fashion. But the third bullet is a realignment with the clinical care teams or delivery care teams. For VA, that's been most noticeable with a transition of our Title V non-clinical biomedical equipment support specialists to hybrid Title 38 clinical biomedical equipment support specialists. It's aligned them with the clinical side of the house. Funding streams have been aligned, and all of that is about creating more prominence and more importance for the team. It also, and this is something that non-VA folks might not understand, has allowed us to increase grades and pay for our biomedical equipment support specialists, and also give them a much greater prominence and visibility in the facility. And then the last one, the last paradigm shift, is a transition of HTM from a section to service. And that's really a culmination of all of those things happening. So now, HTM has a seat at the big table. Line of sight with senior leadership. With great power comes great responsibility. I'm going to give you 5 mantras, because I know that if you retain 10% of what I'm talking about today, I've done well. So if you don't remember anything else at all, remember these 5 things. The first is understand your leaders. Emotional intelligence is probably one of the most underutilized tools in the toolbox, but probably one of the most important. There are going to be similar characteristics with senior leaders, with all of them, but they're also going to have unique qualities. You need to understand that. You need to understand how they think. You need to understand what information they want, what they want, when they want it, how they want it. Because at the end of the day, they don't have to adapt to you. You have to adapt to them. So I can't emphasize that one enough, and that will go a long way towards making your life much easier if you're in one of those senior HTM roles dealing with executive leadership. The second mantra is understand your environment. Now, you may ask, what does that really mean? And why does that tie into 24/7? So I'm going to give you an Orlando VA perspective. We're serving 140,000 plus veterans. That's a lot. We're one of the tops, probably in the top 5 in the country. We have the highest volume of clinical encounters in the country. Our volumes are through the roof. To deal with that, we've got 170 million plus in medical equipment asset value. We've got probably a little over 1.8 million in owned square footage in our 6-county catchment area, and probably another 300,000 square feet, soon to approach 500,000 square feet in leased space to be able to provide care to our veterans. And with all of that, we put close to $500 million in the community, in our care in the community. We couldn't take all that volume. Know your environment. What does that mean to me? That means my director, my chief of staff, they are wanting to use every single asset we have to try to bring some of that money back into the organization so they can reduce that cost. We're getting close to being a $2 billion operation. It is massive. That's the environment we're in. How that ties to 24/7? Think about the expectations. If something goes down after hours, they want somebody out there right away. They want somebody on that fixing it. If it's critical equipment, if it's something that's going to impact patient care, it's going to impact any kind of delivery of clinical care the following day, they want somebody out there right away. And it means that you have to align your operations to address those expectations. It also means that if you're impacting patient care, you better be telling your senior leader that night what's happening. Because I will tell you, they do not like to be surprised with information the next day. That also means that you're prepared the next day where you know what happened, why it happened, and what the heck you're doing about it. You need to calm the waters that are boiling. You need to give them a comfort level. You need to make sure that they know what the plan is to address the issue. So that's the 24/7 piece. Now the guy pointing his finger and screaming, that never happens. That gets to the third mantra. Understand the expectations. With the environment that we have, what do you think the expectations are at our facility? I want it done yesterday. That means if you have an MRI unit that goes down on Friday, even if you don't have a full service contract, you know what the expectation is? And I don't know if you work in government, but getting things done is not easy, especially when it comes to procurements. They're expecting that you do an emergency procurement, you've worked out with contract, you've got everything done, and you've got somebody out there that day. They're finding out what the issue is. I don't care if it's a flux capacitor or whatever, but they're getting it and they're getting it on a plane and delivered the following day. That's the expectation. And they don't want to hear, hey, when we come in on Monday, we'll take care of it. No. What are you doing about it Friday night? What are you doing about it Saturday night? What are you doing about it Sunday? They're wanting it fixed, and they're wanting it fixed right away. Now, why am I telling you this? In some instances, you may have a different environment. You may have redundant systems. You may have the ability to flex with problems that occur. We don't have that flexibility. As long as you understand the environment and you have good working relationship with your leadership, how you deal with that may change, but you better know those expectations and you better be meeting those expectations. So that's the third mantra. The fourth one, and this may not make sense, what have you done for me lately? The mantra for that one is, believe it or not, improve your worth. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about VA right now that is really challenging for our providers and nursing staff. I don't know if you've ever heard of HR modernization, something that they've done in VA. It has been an utter disaster. Utter disaster. Our recruitment throughput has been damaged by it, and we've been dealing this for years now. And it's not only impacted non-clinical services, but more importantly, nursing, providers, all of them have been impacted by it. So they're having a problem bringing people on, and that creates a whole host of issues. Now add on top of that, that they're creating all these new programs and positions in our network office and in our VA central office. And what do you think happens with that? They start stealing away all of the providers and all of these nurses for those positions. So you lose a lot of your leadership in the organization. And if that weren't bad enough, there's a third piece to that. So not only are you not able to recruit as quickly, and not only are basically you have these rating teams coming through and taking a lot of your leadership away, but they have other external things that are going on that are having equal impact. And a good example of that is all of these new program offices and things, they're pushing out more requirements down to the facility. So now not only do you have less staff, but you also have more work to do. What has that done to our clinical folks? They want to push off every bit of administrative responsibilities they can, and they want to be just purely clinical. They want to get down to bare bones just to be able to manage. So when I say improve your worth, it's about what can you do for them? How can you help them? Whether it in the VA, it could be there's a lot of responsibilities on services when it comes to procurement, but there could be things that you can do to help them out. Every time you reach across the aisle, reach across the table, especially when you're identifying those kinds of gaps, you've just elevated your team. And that stuff flows up, especially when clinical leaders see that. That's going to flow up to a chief of staff. It's going to flow up, in our instance, to associate director for patient care services, which would be equivalent of a CNO in the private sector. They're going to see that. and they're going to like it a lot. So that's where I say improve your worth. And then the last one, which is the bottom line up front, which you already heard about, and keep it simple, stupid. Connect, don't confuse. When you get into a bunch of technical jargon, you'll lose your audience. You need to get to the key information. You need to make things, you need to give them an easy button so it's a no-brainer for them. And I'll give you a for instance. I love talking to some of the networking guys, but oh my God, when they start getting into that tech speak, my brain starts to shut down and I have to tell them, hey, look, you got to put this on a 5th grade level for me. So understand that. Your goal is to connect with them. It's not to confuse them. So I'm not going to go through all of these. These are just some things that have happened to me along the way. But I do want to focus on that top bullet, which is the MDIA, or Medical Device Infrastructure Architecture implementation. The reason I want to focus on that is because for the purposes here, this is one I got called up on the carpet on and had to deal with for months and months and months. So for us, what that was all about, we ended up having to reconfigure all of our VLAN ACLs from, I believe it was modality specific to site and vendor specific. Sounds easy, doesn't it? Just change a few things here or there. It was awful. When I say it was awful, it was horrible. Because at the same time that was going on, OIT decided that they were going to make a lot of changes in their processes. So the risk of failure was phenomenal, through the roof. I happened to be that fortunate face person for HTM at the time, and I did a ton of buffering. How do you deal with a situation like that? There's a lot of stuff that's beyond your control, and especially when you work in the VA, because I'm not sure how it works in the private sector, but when you're dealing with connectivity issues, I've got informatics, I've got OIT, I've got the services that I deal with, I've got supply chain to deal with in some instances. All of those people have a piece in that. Plus you've got the vendor, you've got different OIT offices that they're kind of separate but the same. It's kind of a weird setup. But I'm the face person for all of that. So what do? You make sure that you pull the team together, that you have as much information as you can collect, that everybody understands the mission and the focus. You make sure everybody understands that safety of patients comes first. You also try to improve your capabilities. In this instance, it's improving our network capabilities so that we could manage these activities better. And then you set up a communication strategy with the senior leadership so you can quickly explain this very complex and difficult process that has a lot of hands in it and is ripe for failure. It's not fun, but if you do remain calm and you're thoughtful about it, you can manage it. Anybody can manage it. So that's the one that I wanted to point out because it's one that was really impactful for me and it was impactful for the organization. Multiple times loss of equipment while we were doing these things. We had to change our time frame for some of these implementations. So we had to take this agile approach and make sure that we were adjusting as the situation dictated. And then I guess the last thing is, with all that responsibility, hopefully I didn't scare you if you're actually wanting one of those positions, but it can be fun and it can be enjoyable. It's fun to make things happen. It's fun to be the person who's setting direction in the organization. It can be a lot of fun, but how do you make it that way? Be thoughtful, come up with your strategies and tactics, relay that to your leadership team so they know the vision that you have and the direction that you're going. And I've put some items on here that were things that we did along the way. That focus on network systems and biomedical equipment support specialists, when do you think that became a big deal for me? It was during the implementation I just told you about. I'm not a subject matter expert, but I realized through that experience, that was probably one of the most important things that we could do. And so now, and I think we're going to go to a third, but we have 2 network specialists in our group. We're probably going to go to a third. And we have 3 imaging biomedical equipment support specialists who are equivalent but specialized to those diagnostic imaging systems. Another one, contracts for problem-prone areas. An example for that is SPS. Oh my God, that stuff, and I'm not going to mention any particular vendors, but if you have this one particular vendor I've been dealing with for a while, they have been, and Frank, I see you back there, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. That stuff can eat your lunch. So when it is sucking up your resources, you may need to consider putting a contract in place which adds a buffer for you with that SPS chief for us sterile processing. So that's an instance where you can make your life a little bit easier. Reliable, comprehensive on-call support. I mentioned the 24/7. You need to have in place a reliable network person who's going to be able to respond 24/7 and staff that can respond to any issue. They may not know everything about the equipment, but you need to have some boots on the ground at any given point. So you need to set that up. Equipment procurement support, that one can really make services lives easier. And it's a great opportunity to bond with those services and really gain some traction with clinical leadership. Equipment technology implementation project management, kind of the same thing. This marketing one, it gets missed a lot, but man, you need to tout yourself and tout what you do. There's all kinds of opportunities. We have these ELT meetings in the morning. I'll be honest with you, I'm from about 7:30 in the morning to 10 o'clock. That's all I'm doing are these meetings, and it's a little bit much, but it does offer an opportunity for you to market what you do. They have a specials discussion at that time where anyone can present. And I would tell you, take every opportunity you can to market service. And then last is the communications. And it gets back to that thing, and you want to connect, not confuse. So really those 5 mantras, and here's some examples of things that you could do that can make your life easier. And I'll leave you with this one point. And I'm joking and I'm not joking. I always tell my direct reports that my overall goal is I want things to be humming along so swimmingly that essentially I could take off at 2 o'clock every day and go play golf if I wanted to. You really want an easy button. You want to reduce the stress. You want to get the job done. You want to have fun at work. This is how you do it.
All right, Dr. Dukes is next.
Try to get this done so you guys can get out of here and go have a good Halloween. I wore black, no honor. Kurt told me I had to wear a suit, but I'm an OBGYN. I wear pajamas every day to work. So there was no way I was putting a coat and tie on. I'm humbled to be in the presence of 2 other engineers. I've never been on a panel. I've sat on a lot of talks and never been, we all had engineering backgrounds. So I think you guys are lucky to get the insight that you're getting, that you have individuals that know what you're going through. Quick. So this is me, look like the picture, my pink tie, I'm an OBGYN, you know. So just real quick, just to give you a little background about me, and I'll explain the importance of that later. I'm from LA, not Los Angeles, but Lower Alabama. Some of you, if you're anywhere close to this area, knows the Redneck Riviera up along the coast. Mobile's a small town there. I grew up in Atlanta. My dad repaired X-ray equipment. Anybody ever heard of Picker X-ray? Yeah. He repaired X-ray equipment across the state of Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina with Picker X-ray. They're no longer around. They got absorbed by other people as it happened. He would drag home these old cars, barn finds, and come home and we'd tinker with them and rebuild them. My mother was an OR nurse for over 45 years. So that's my connection to where I ended up interest-wise. One of the other things was, does anyone remember the name Dr. Rudy Wells? No one? How about $6 Million Man? Dr. Rudy Wells built the $6 Million Man, which was a TV show in the 70s. He was a guy, Lee Majors was the actor who played him, an astronaut who had an accident. They rebuilt him. We didn't have CGI then, so somebody got smart and just said, we'll slow the motion down and give it a little bit of sound, and it looks like he's doing something superhuman. So he'd go to jump and it'd be, beep, 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 you know. So that was back in the 70s, all right, for those of us who maybe have gray hair or lost a little bit of hair. But that's my connection of how I got interested in biomedical engineering. I was very fortunate, you know, coming out of high school, graduated in 1980. Computers were starting, went to Tulane. That's where I met Kurt. If you guys want to hang around later, we'll tell you a lot of big stories about New Orleans. But you know, that was where my interest came from. I had a mother and a father, both having kind of medical and engineering interest. And so that's where I ended up going. I thought I'd go to medical school and do artificial limbs and things like that. And I got there and I decided I liked people too much. So I wanted to go into something where I had more personal contact. So now I do $6 million babies instead of the $6 million man. So I've been here in Orlando since 1995, held a lot of different positions. But just to kind of give you a little bit of an overview here, communication, obviously you guys have heard that. Accuracy, considering the application, assume with caution. I'm not going to hang things up too much. I want to move it along so we can get to your participation in a little bit. This is an actual thing that just happened like 2 weeks ago. You know, Kurt called me and said, I need some slides. And I said, great, I got one for you. So I come in and I review my charts every day before I get to the, you know, usually a few days ahead of time. And my Monday morning first patient, I don't know if you can read that.
Look at one more.
Look at one more. Can you see what it says?
Yeah.
Bitch control instead of birth control. Okay. So this is, as an OBGYN, my first patient of the day is listed as bitch control instead of birth control. Obviously a typo. I corrected it. Patient didn't see it, but you know, it's just interesting. You know, we put all this effort into EMR and there's no autocorrect. I mean, you type something right now on your phone, it's going to give you 6 different options of what you should pick, but the EMR is not built to protect me from my scheduler who put this in accidentally. So it's just a point to remember, you know, we assume that technology is going to take care of us. It doesn't always do it. So just kind of looking at that. Here's another simple one, the and symbol, okay? We all know what that symbol is. One of the biggest procedures in women's health is anybody know who works anywhere near surgery? What's the biggest procedure that women might have that might use that letter? A D and C, dilatation curettage, one of the most common procedures that we use in gynecologic world. the recent update on our EMR somehow did not include this letter as an appropriate character to be used in the electronic medical record. So anytime we now open the chart and past history is there, and this is in there, there's an extra step we have to go through to deal with that. So it's just, once again, kind of pointing to thinking about how the dominoes fall as we make changes in a system that we seem like, oh, it's updated, we're doing something great, and there's a lot of good things over here, but what are the other things that happen? So just a simple character, a mission, can bring that on. And this is one of my big topics too. Who deals with robotics? Got a few people who do, yeah. Do you remember bringing it on board? How easy was that? Right. So, when this first started, it was meant to create alternatives to traditional laparoscopic surgery. It's a great technique in a lot of areas, but in the typical gynecologic area, it really has not added a lot to it because the time, the effort, the money, the training, the companies wanted to tell us is, oh, you don't have to have any laparoscopic skills to do this. And my concern was, I've got physicians who never touched a laparoscope, but they want to put them behind this contraption. So it's like, oh, you've never driven a car, but we're going to put you in a Ferrari. There are a lot of challenges that come up from the clinical side that we have to be thoughtful of when we go to introduce new technology, even though the market says everybody wants this, right? The other hospital systems are doing it. We got to get it on board. You're under the pressure from your administrators. No offense, Jeff. To get this on board, get it out there, get it moving. You have to have dedicated teams. You have to take up extra OR time. I can do a traditional laparoscopic hysterectomy in an hour. Robotics takes 2.5 to 3. And that makes a difference in patient care. How long they're under anesthesia, what's going on, their recovery period doesn't change that much. So, this is one of those areas that it's a great toy. I loved playing Pac-Man back in the day. You guys might, some of the younger people may not know, but you put these little circle round metal pieces, they were called quarters in the machine. You guys don't see that anymore because you Venmo everything or swipe or whatever, but you would sit there in front of the monitor and throw these little metal coins in there. It's great. It's fun. As an engineer, when this first came out, I'm like, great. And then as I learned more about it, the cautionary tales that we had to circle back around to protect not only the providers, but patients in implementing new technology. So the information that you guys can bring to say, hey, this is great, but understand it's coming at this, I don't want to say cost, but this, effort of other areas that you have to deal with. So from the clinical side, that's some of the things that we're thinking about. And then the many hats, and I think Jeff spoke to this a little bit, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, but I'll pull out my engineering terms, Venn diagrams. We've all got the Venn diagrams where they overlap and stuff like that. So from a clinical physician standpoint, we've got a lot of circles that we're dealing with that overlap in the middle. So just keeping up with understanding where we're coming from. We're coming from the patient side. We're coming from private payer side. We're coming from dealing with the hospital administration. We're coming from the technology companies that are providing things. So, you know, there are a lot of hats that we end up wearing from that standpoint. So, trying not to take up too much time, but I think that's it. All right, thank you.
So we're going to have a little bit of back and forth with the group here. Start with a few what we call thought provokers, just to get the discussion going here. This is a real life situation that I was in. I worked for a chief of staff for a period of time, a couple of years, who was a psychiatrist by training and practice. Okay. Fast forward a couple of years, next chief of staff came in was a surgeon. And what are some of the differences that I had to be mindful of or that I might have experienced in interacting with the two different chief of staff executives? Which one do you think was more decisive? Okay, were you gonna say something, Nicole?
Yeah, psychiatrist, maybe you're leading for a little bit longer, more in depth discussion, conversation.
He would say, tell me what's going on, Kurt. It's out in the hospital. You know, I felt like I was on his couch, right? He wanted to know the friction between the vascular surgeons and the interventional radiologists because they're overlapping turf. You know, how are they doing, Kurt? The new technology that we put in the EP lab, you know, is doctors, you know, Zimmer happy with that, right? So exactly right. So again, think about the differences of who you're interacting with. The surgeon was very much, I learned very quickly, you know, bring in the facts, tell him what he needs to know. He would make a decision and, you know, out the door, I'd go. Okay. Mr. Birdsong kind of touched on one thought here, you know, when he talked about the morning reports and at his facility, they welcome updates from the field, but very often executive leaders are dealing with difficult situations, right? Bad news tends to go to their desk. So what are some ways that we can share good news? You know, a lot of the good things that are happening in a hospital or that you may be involved in that happen in a hospital. Open floor. Yes, sir. Good. And how did you share that goodness with your staff or with others in the hospital?
You know, we so within the round teams, so you know, everyone's aware that it's happening. So,
Right on. Right on. Very good. Thanks. Happy Halloween to you. Thank you for offering that.
I'm driving.
Yes, Mike.
I think sharing it and tying it back to like the struggle moment to say how whether it be a team that came together and how it involved, whether it be people improving the process, tying it back to what those individuals care about, and also showing that it's not just one team's effort, it's a group effort. And that not only lifts your department, but it lifts everyone else's spirits. Even if they're not involved, or which team wasn't involved, they realize that really is that your 5 things. Understand what they want. Some people just want to email it. Some people walk across and they might not say something, but you say, hey, take care of, and they'll do it. But you have to understand what leaders like. I work for a large institution, and physicians are very high. But anyway.
Dog could run fast.
No, but I mean, you gotta know what their how they're doing, because you have to understand how they want it. I mean, I have, there's other, positions that you're gonna take care of it, right? In one here and there. You might tell them later to see them and take care of it. They're, if you try to just give them what's important, and that depends on you, if it's a surgeon, it's a guy. Everybody knows that details. They don't want long presentation. They fun to
All right, thanks. Shifting gears a little bit, just again, a thought provoker. What I call formality versus familiarity. I've been trying to model this, even though I've known my two co-panelists for many years, Mr. Birdsong and Dr. Dukes. I'm calling them by their formal title, right, in this context. So, the thought here is, when in doubt, you may know somebody, as a friend, very familiar, but if you're in a setting, in an executive presentation, you may choose to err on the side of calling them Mr. So-and-so or Dr. So-and-so. Right, that you can't really go wrong by that. And I've seen people through the years get a little too familiar, and something to think about. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, and to speak to that point, I think the environment dictates some of that sometimes too.
Right.
Mr. Finke. That, you're having a personal conversation, I'll tell people, call me Steve. Person, very good person, so but in a meeting forum where there's more formality to it, working with the VA, you know that very well, and both of you guys, Kirk was telling me, Mr. Finke was telling me ahead of time, under secretaries that he's dealing with and things like that, being able to communicate to them, even though offline, there's a different conversation. So it's just keeping that formality in mind. And when I talk to hospital administrators and whatnot, formal name, it's not a bad way, unless they give you some kind of inclination that, hey, please, call me this.
You can call me Jeff.
Yeah. You can call me
There you go. There you go. And see Steve and Kurt after the session if you want to know about our college roommate days at Tulane.
I think in a lot of meetings, yes, it's just something that a lot of continuing to do with the outreach. Because they want you to talk to the person, right? Where if you're in a meeting, you're trying to get information out of your staff. If they're in the midst of it, they're not supposed to about it. Yeah, I can talk to you about it.
You hear that invitation as he just gave you, then yeah, absolutely. Yep.